Picture this, a breathtaking, jagged skyline built literally on top of an ancient volcanic rock. Welcome to this explainer, where we're going to explore the magnificent Scottish capital of Edinburgh. You know, its past is just as dramatic as its geography. Today, we're going to trace the footsteps of its incredibly rich history, and we'll see exactly how a city forged on a volcano evolved into this massive global center of culture, literature, and even magic. All right, let's dive right in.
So here's our structural roadmap for the explainer. We'll start with Forged in Fire and War, then look at the tragic Queen Mary. After that, we'll cover the Athens of the North, uncover the birthplace of magic, and finally wrap things up with Edinburgh as a modern cultural marvel.
Part 1. Forged in Fire and War, Origins of Edinburgh. Okay, to really get Edinburgh, you absolutely have to understand its geography. This is a city whose very foundation was shaped by millions of years of geothermal violence. That massive volcanic plug, which eventually became the base for Edinburgh Castle, was just a natural magnet for early settlements. I mean, we're talking evidence of human activity going all the way back to 8500 BC. By around 1000 BC, you've got a Celtic tribe called the Vodadini building a secure hill fort right up there on Castle Rock, raising livestock and creating a really rich culture. Then, in 80 AD, the Romans show up. If we fast forward through centuries of power struggles between the Picts, the Britons, and the Scots, we finally hit 1125 AD, which is when King David I officially declares Edinburgh a royal burgh. That move firmly cemented its role as Scotland's capital.
Now, going back to when the Romans first arrived, they actually called the area Dininen, which roughly translates to fort on a slope. And honestly, that hits the nail on the head. Because of that strategic, sloping volcanic rock, early Edinburgh was a place of constant tribal clashes and brutal sieges. It was very much a fortress first and a city second. Especially throughout the wars of Scottish independence, that castle on the hills saw just relentless conflict.
Moving into Part 2, the tragic Queen Mary, a dramatic royal life.
So, shifting gears from ancient fortresses into the 16th century, we run into one of European royal history's most fascinating and, frankly, tragic figures. Just imagine this for a second. Mary inherited the throne of Scotland when she was literally 6 days old after her father unexpectedly died. She was sent off to France for safety and grew up in this lavish court. But by the time she was 18, she's already a widow returning to a Scottish kingdom that is in absolute religious turmoil. As a Catholic queen in a newly Protestant nation, her reign was, well, pure chaos. She marries Lord Darnley, but he's eventually murdered, which throws her rule into complete jeopardy. Then she makes the highly controversial choice to marry the Earl of Bothwell, who, by the way, was actually implicated in her previous husband's death. That sparks a massive rebellion, leading directly to her forced abdication in 1567. Desperate, she flees to her cousin Elizabeth I of England, looking for protection. But instead, because she's viewed as a major threat to the English throne, she's locked up for 19 years and ultimately executed at just 44. It's a staggering story of betrayal, ambition, and political intrigue that forever left its mark on Edinburgh.
Section 3. The Athens of the North, Age of Enlightenment.
By the time we get into the 18th century, Edinburgh really needed to shed its medieval baggage. Up until the 1760s, the old town was incredibly overcrowded, cramped, and, to be totally blunt, pretty unsanitary. The city literally had to build its way out of the Dark Ages. So, in 1767, they kick off development on the elegant New Town, spearheaded by a designer named James Craig. And this was revolutionary urban planning. Out go the cramped, dirty alleys, and in come these gorgeous wide streets, perfect symmetry, and classical design. This leap in architecture completely transformed Edinburgh's identity and actually ended up influencing urban development all across Europe.
And here's the coolest part. With this beautiful new infrastructure came a massive influx of brilliant minds. During the Scottish Enlightenment, the University of Edinburgh, which had been around since 1582, became a total magnet for global thinkers. We are talking absolute heavyweights. You had David Hume doing groundbreaking work on human nature, Adam Smith, who basically built modern economic theory from the ground up, and James Hutton, who was a true pioneer in the sciences. These scholars all flocked to the city, turning it into a global hub for philosophy, literature, and medicine. It was this incredible density of pure genius that earned Edinburgh its famous, enduring nickname, the Athens of the North.
Section 4. The Birthplace of Magic, a Modern Pop Culture Hub. Now let's pivot for a minute to a deeply humanizing story that shows a totally different side of the Scottish capital. 14 years. That is a really long time. This number represents one of the most emotional and legendary tales in Edinburgh's history. From 1858 to 1872, a fiercely loyal Skye Terrier named Greyfriars Bobby guarded his owner's grave in a local churchyard for 14 consecutive years. It's just this beautiful, quiet testament to the city's personal lived history, right alongside all those grand royal and intellectual milestones.
And interestingly enough, speaking of that exact same churchyard, it leads us directly to a very famous quote, the birthplace of Harry Potter. Back in the early 1990s, an author named J.K. Rowling moved to Edinburgh. At the time, she was a struggling single mother dealing with immense financial hardship. She started writing her now legendary books in the Elephant House Cafe, a cozy little spot that just happened to perfectly overlook the magnificent, towering Edinburgh Castle.
What's truly fascinating here is how directly the city mapped onto the wizarding world. Rowling would take walks through Greyfriars Kirkyard. Yep, the very same centuries-old graveyard where Bobby guarded his master, and she found incredible inspiration literally written on the tombstones. Lord Voldemort's real name, Tom Riddle, inspired by a tombstone for a Thomas Riddell. Professor McGonagall, named after a famous poet buried there, William McGonagall. And just steps away stands George Heriot's School, this towering, turreted building that served as a real-life lookalike for Hogwarts itself. Edinburgh's Gothic architecture and mystical charm didn't just host the author, they actively shaped one of the biggest literary phenomena in human history.
Section 5. A modern cultural marvel. Edinburgh today.
So where does that leave us today? Well, modern Edinburgh is an absolute masterclass in balancing heavy, dramatic history with cutting-edge innovation. After making huge contributions during both World Wars, the city founded the Edinburgh International Festival in 1947 to foster international cooperation through art. That eventually sparked the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, which today is literally the world's largest arts festival, drawing creatives from every corner of the globe. Politically, the city took a huge step forward when the Scottish Parliament was rightfully reinstated in 1999, restoring Edinburgh as the official seat of government. Today, it's definitely not just a museum of old castles and graveyards. It's a major global player in finance, a booming hub for tech startups, and a real leader in green building and eco-friendly initiatives.
So the big takeaway from this explainer is that Edinburgh is profoundly a city of layers. From a violent volcanic rock and Roman sieges, to tragic queens, Enlightenment philosophers, and modern-day magical inspiration, every single century has left a permanent mark on its cobblestone streets. We've just covered thousands of years of human triumph and tragedy. So looking back at the incredible journey we just took, what part of Edinburgh's history fascinates you the most? Is it the ancient Celtic warriors, the brilliant minds of the Enlightenment, or maybe that Gothic inspiration from modern pop culture? Reflect on that for a bit, and until next time, keep exploring the incredible history hidden in the world around you.